Assalamu alaikum, welcome to Game Changer. I'm Maryam Zia. Tonight we will be delving on to an unfolding situation in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. After 10 years, these elections are being held in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. In today's program, we will be talking about the significance of these elections. Because we know that, of course, the special status of this region was taken away from the Modi government and it was turned into union territory under direct rule from India. Nearly 9 million people are registered to vote in these assembly elections for 90 seats. What should be we expecting from these elections? We will be talking about in today's program. And also when we talk about the security situation in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir with 500,000 Indian troops stationed there, of course it raises a lot of questions about free and fair elections to be held in this region, and also the human rights violations that are taking place in this region. We will be talking about all these dimensions in today's program. To discuss this and more, we are joined in the studios by Mr. Altaf Hussain Wani, who is a leader APHC. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
And we are joined online by Dr.Asma Shakir Khawaja, who is Executive Director CISS Iiojk. Welcome to the program. Wani Sahab, let me start with you. Of course, with the very basic question, what is the significance of these elections that are of course being held after orders from Supreme Court of India, after special status we know was of course revocation of the special status of the region in 2019. How important are these elections?
You see, as far as the people of Kashmir are concerned, for them these elections are just a military exercise, we can say, yet another military exercise by the Indian government. Because these elections have been, India has been conducting elections off and on in occupied Kashmir to install the governments of its design, of its what they want to install, the puppets in Indian occupied Kashmir. But having said that, these elections are being held after 10 years in occupied Kashmir. We have seen some major developments happening in these 10 years. On one hand, the government of India stripped off the Article 370, 35A and thereafter started the engineering to change the demography of Indian occupied Kashmir, then did the delimitation of the assembly segments and thereof changed all the norms that which were constitutional to the Jammu and Kashmir constitution or the Indian constitution even. All these steps which the government of India took during these 10 years were aimed off, I will term them, those were the pre-poll riggings by the Modi government. On one hand, they downgraded the status of Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, Ladakh Union Territory and Jammu and Kashmir, this Union Territory. But from the same day, they started the pre-poll rigging in order to gain the power in Indian occupied Kashmir. It is the BJP's dream to rule the Kashmir, to rule the Kashmiris through Kashmiris. That is their motto. But they failed to do it after doing so much of exercise in the last 10 years. And in the recent parliament elections, they saw they could not do it. And after that, what they did, they then transferred all the powers, be it the police power, be it the public power or the appointment of judicial officers.
Of course,
those were transferred to the governor, and that means the assembly which will come into the after these elections, which will be constituted over there, this will have no powers whatsoever.
Of course, because they are only going to be looking after culture and education.
All these legislations will be made by the Delhi's parliament, so there will be no direct interference in the making of legislations in this assembly.
And when we talk about voice of people, how significant it is, let me of course include Dr. Asma into the discussion. Dr. Asma, what do you make of these elections regarding, of course, after the abrogation of Article 370 and 35A, and also after and in the context of delimitation exercise that took place, and the number of seats were increased from 83 to 90. So how significant are these elections going to be?
I would not say that those elections would be really significant, because at the first place they are not representing true democracy and the will and wishes of people. People of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, they want, number one, the reverse of the revocation of Article 370. Second, they want plebiscite. But definitely, Indian government under Modi, they are considering these elections extremely significant, because just before announcing the dates of elections in three phases, a massive reshuffle in the police and civil administration of at least 198 upper and middle rank officers took place, and that includes the appointment of a new intelligence wing chief as well. And they ordered these changes. Along with that, they also ordered, not recently, but almost a few weeks back, the increase in the power of the governor and decrease in the powers of the Legislative Assembly of illegally Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. And these acts made that the newly elected representatives would merely be an administrative tools in the hand of the center under the leadership of governor. So definitely Modi, after his proxies, after BJP was is unable to fight elections in illegally Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, the government of BJP is extremely, I would say, afraid of the public sentiments and how people of Kashmir are going to
Right,
behave, because the
right,
the no elect no the almost all the representatives who won the Lok Sabha elections from illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, they were those who want reverse of the revocation of Article 370, and who are declared as traitors by Modi regime. And those
right.
people, those indigenous candidates, they won the election, and that indicates upon mood of people living in Kashmir.
Right, and talking
So
about
that is why.
and Dr. Asma, talking about the mood of people and sentiments of people, what should we expect regarding the voter turnout in these elections as compared to 58.46 percentage of voters that, of course, casted their votes in the Lok Sabha elections?
Yes, very, very important question. There are almost 8.7 million voters for 90, and they will elect 90 representatives. So those voters definitely in Lok Sabha elections, the voter of illegally Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir used the power of vote to demonstrate their apathy, their disliking, their rejection of the aggressive and policies of Modi regime with BJP, the policies of diluting Kashmiri identity, democracy, and not granting Kashmiris their right to their on their resources, on their land, and on their constitution. So I think that this time as well, people would use vote as to project their hatred for the illegal occupation of Jammu and Kashmir. And this highlights when Umar Abdullah recently stated that national conference, if they come back into the power, then they would reinstate Article 370 and pass a bill from the state assembly that article should be reinstated in the Indian constitution. So this tells that already national conference feeling the pulse of people, trying to lure them to vote them through their false promise to reinstating Article 370. So this is
Right.
how, this is what tells us the pulse and what people think. But on the other side, there is probability that who would like to vote for an assembly which doesn't have any power.
Right, very
Modi
important, of
regime
course.
made sure that before going back to the elections, they made sure that the future state assembly of illegally Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir should be truthless and should not have any power to change the fate of Kashmiri people. So
Right,
right
right.
now, what I foresee, Modi
Right, and
regime
Dr.
would keep
Right.
drumming the
Right, and Dr. Asma,
rhetoric
at the
of
same time, there are a lot of questions about legitimacy of these elections as well. So, Mr. Wani, how do you see these elections in the broader strategy of India trying to portray normalcy in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir by conducting these elections at this point in time? And also, how do you see the role of Indian Supreme Court in all this?
You see, unfortunately, Indian Supreme Court in 11 December 2023 verdict where they upheld the revocation of Article 370 and asked the government of India to hold the elections before 30th of September 2024. It is because of that Supreme Court's verdict that BJP government has agreed to hold the elections in occupied Kashmir. If you can see, the security situation in occupied Kashmir was not in BJP's favor to hold the elections in Kashmir. They projected a facade of normalcy in Kashmir for last 5 years, that now there is normalcy in Kashmir as we have abrogated Article 370, 35A, there is normalcy, there is development, there is progress at every land, and people of Kashmir are very much happy with the decisions taken by the government. As I told you, on one hand, people of Kashmir showed their way to the government of India during the parliament elections, how they like the decisions of the government of India. That was the one way of showing their dissent to the government of India through a democratic
And also,
way.
BJP did not have any candidate.
Any candidate, they could
in
not
Lok Sabha
field any
elections
candidate,
from
and their proxies lost very badly the elections in Indian occupied Kashmir, and even they lost Ladakh in this constituency. So that was that. At that time, BJP could see that it's very difficult for them to hold the election. As I earlier said, that BJP started the pre-poll rigging right from the 2019 onwards, that in order to gain these seats by the delimitation process they did, where they increased 7 seats in Jammu and 1 seat only in Kashmir, and not taking into consideration neither the population ratio nor the geographical connectivity of the regions, while
and also allowing outsiders to vote in these elections.
Outsiders to vote. That was already those Sharnarsis who are living in Jammu, they have been allowed to vote, and allowing the fake domiciles to the non-state subjects and all that by changing demography. Even then, the BJP could not achieve their goal of having 45 plus in the assembly. They also gave, in order to make a pre-poll rigging in the parliament by having more and more what we say, those seats for social caste and scheduled tribe and scheduled caste. You see, the 18% of the seats in this parliament, in this assembly, will be scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, whereas their population in occupied Kashmir is merely 3%, and they are getting the 18% share of these seats. That also speaks how BJP wanted to manage these elections, and what Dr. Asma.
But at the same time, Wani Sahab, in your opinion, what are, in keeping in mind all that context, what are some of the key challenges that the regional parties in the region are facing in the lead up to these elections?
You see, for the regional parties, they will champion for, as Dr. Asma said, Umar Abdullah said that we will pass a resolution in the assembly to reinstate Article 370 and 35A. Similarly, PDP is also championing for the revocation of reinstating Article 370 and calling that BJP has started this much. The regional parties, one of the challenges for them is they are on one hand, I could say they are on one hand, they are on a side where there are some positives for them. That is, that people of Kashmir have totally rejected the BJP. Now, the Indian forces, The Indian military, the heaviest military zone in the world, where military will make people to vote. Whether people like to vote or not, people will be made to vote. So you will see a high voting turnout. And this high voting turnout will be against the BJP, and it will be in favor of the regional parties. So the regional parties are lesser evils in that way, because all the political leaders demanding, who are the genuine leaders of Kashmir, for demanding right celebration for Kashmir.
And how do you see BJP's previous coalition with PDP and other,
I don't think that is taking place
from
before elections. Nothing such will take place. It will be seen after the elections what will be. Because going through the results of the parliament elections, I could see the BJP is not getting that much of vote in even in Jammu what they got previously in the previous assembly elections. In previous assembly elections, they had 25 seats. I could see them this time less than those seats there, because Congress will make some inroads there, and so will the other regional parties make. And likewise in Kashmir, you will see some inroads if there will be National Conference PDP, but there is the Engineer Rashid's Awami Ittihad Party, that will be making some inroads there. So the parliament will be a different type of parliament this time.
Right. And Dr. Asma, what's your take on this, especially keeping in mind, of course, people's resentment towards BJP is going to be impacting the election result?
For people of Kashmir, BJP has become a symbol of fascism, a symbol of oppression, because during their previous two regimes and this third regime, their third term in government as well, the most affected community is Kashmiri people, and along with Muslims and other minorities as well. But Kashmiris faced extreme oppression and denial of their basic right during the BJP regime. That is why people definitely, they are not going to vote for BJP, and that is so obvious by BJP refraining to even participating in the local elections. And here the biggest question we can ask, that when BJP said that revocation of Article 370 is fulfilling the wishes of Kashmiri people because they want revocation of Article 370, and they are very happy that with the revocation of Article 370, they are in mainstream now and there would be economic development in the region. So why BJP is afraid of fighting the elections to capitalize on that popularity which it, as BJP propagandists were stating on different international national forums in India. So why they are not participating in the election? So this is the biggest sign that anyone who supported the revocation of Article 370 is unable to face the public and people of Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. And that is the reality. Otherwise, I am thinking that if and there is a big if, that there would be free and fair elections, the results would not be in favor of India. Or and why I used if, because if you see during last 2 months, BJP government is continuously increasing the presence of Indian occupied forces in Jammu and Kashmir, and right before announcing these elections, all those postings and appointment of new people and increase in the number of armed militias or government-owned military.
Over half a million, of course, over half a million. Right.
Nearly 1 million.
Right.
900 million, historically, 900 million Indian occupied forces are present to control 8.7 or around
900,000. But Dr. Asma, at the same time, when we talk about this increased military presence in the region, how do you think these elections are going to be free and fair with this kind of security situation?
That is why I use the term from if, and believe me, I foresee and I fear that Modi regime, in order to run away from elections, may use false flag operation or create an extreme security situation in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir just to run away from the state assembly elections as a premise to satisfy the Indian Supreme Court. Otherwise, even after 10 years, this says that during whole BJP regime, Kashmiris in Indian occupied Kashmir were not granted their right to vote because BJP is afraid of facing the people after all that fascism it demonstrated and all that rollback it conducted. We all know that after coming into power, BJP rolled back most of the confidence building measures took place between Musharraf regime and Manmohan Singh, and those CBMs on Kashmir, they were actually only about easing the trauma of Kashmiri people. They were about economic development in Kashmir, using Kashmiri resources to bring prosperity for Kashmiris. Those were about meeting of divided families. Those were about the rights, the plight of to ease the plight of Kashmiri people in their conflict. But BJP government reversed all those CBMs, and that is why the era of BJP is like one of the toughest eras for the people in occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and
Right.
that is why it is really important that that BJP may even try to use a false flag operation to run away from these forthcoming elections, which
Right, right.
under
Very
the
important
compulsion
point raised by you,
intensify.
Dr. Asma. And let me take the same point to Wani Saab. Wani Saab, what's your take on this regarding the security situation? And also, when we talk about transparency in elections and free and fair elections are going to be held in the region, what's your take on this? Especially
start
with, of
there
course,
cannot
onslaught on media and
there
journalists.
cannot be free and fair elections. These the phrase cannot be used for these elections. That these elections can be at any time free and fair, because fear is already there. Already you have about 900,000 troops were there. The troops are equipped with the draconian laws. You have NIA and SIA there, who is using their power to muzzle the dissent over there. You have already put all the people who are dissenting your narrative in the jails. They are behind the bars. You have already asked the press not to use any of the press releases or any of the things what they say in the press. Your press is not allowed even to speak about any of the human rights issues in Kashmir. So how can these elections be free when there is all time fear of the oppression, all time fear of the suppression? Along with that, we have seen when the Indian government adopted for long these 10 years all, the policy of disengagement in Kashmir, the policy of disempowerment of Kashmiris. How could they have a free and fair election in Kashmir? They could see that the results will never be in their favor. Even they will have.
But Mr. Wani, how are these human rights organizations going to be viewing these elections in this region, which is one of the most militarized zone in the world?
You see, already the people or the human rights organization around the globe have always questioned the electioning in Indian occupied Kashmir. But sometimes they say that these can provide a basis for the future discourse of Kashmir. But when the elections are not inclusive, when they are exclusive, they further marginalize the people who are having dissent voice against India. And then you think that these elections will pave a way for any peaceful resolution? No. Only the thing is that if you include the aspirations of the people of Kashmir, which are for the right celebration of people of Kashmir, which are there for a free and fair plebiscite under the UN aspirations, that is the only way you can usher a peace in the region. Otherwise, there cannot be peace in the region. Whatever
Right.
BJP is
and
doing.
at the same time, what role, if any, international observers and of course people from UN can play in these elections, keeping in mind the situations, especially security situation at this point in time?
Firstly, the Indians will never allow any UN observers into Indian occupied Kashmir. Already they have stopped the work of the UN observer mission, which is in Indian occupied Kashmir and also in Azad Kashmir from 1948 they are till date there. Indians ordered them to leave in 1974 and more recently during 2019 onwards they asked them to leave and even asked them to vacate the premises which was allocated them in Delhi. So BJP will not allow any of the international observers in Kashmir, or Indian government will not allow any because even before the UN has issued 2 reports on Kashmir, they asked for investigation commission into human rights violations in Kashmir and asked for a visit to there, but they never allowed them. They said that that is not going to happen. So for these elections, they will not have any external observers there. Yes, they can get some of the people like they did after the abrogation of Article 370. They got some the parliamentarians, the right-wing parliamentarians from Europe and asked them to issue a report. But even then, they were not in a position to say something positive for India. What did they did? They tried to show the normalcy when projecting the G20 tourism summit in Kashmir, but they could not do that because the ground reality is totally different. When you go to Kashmir, you will see the ground reality is totally different. You can see the people have the fear of the army's repression. They cannot say anything because there are reprisals. Even the people of Kashmir living outside Kashmir, propagating for the rights of the people of Kashmir, advocating for the rights of people of Kashmir, their families face reprisals back home.
Right.
So this is how.
Right, of course. And Dr. Asma, talking about the ground realities being different, what India is trying to portray to the world, of course, there is high unemployment rate at this point in time in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, standing at around more than 18%. How do you think this percentage of unemployment is going to be playing a factor or a role in upcoming elections, considering the political discontent in Kashmiri youth?
The unemployment ratio you mentioned, that is 3 times higher than the rest of the India, because I think in rest of India it is 6%. And your question reminds me a statement by late great Kashmiri leader Syed Ali Shah Gilani, and he stated that if Indian government makes all roads of illegally Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir of gold, even then Kashmiris would demand plebiscite and they don't want to stay with India. And this is the biggest reality. So the premise of development you used to frame this question, that is irrelevant for Kashmiris. It is and then there are no such development. The whole promises BJP government made while revoking Article 370, those were false promises. Even the promises for the public of India or Kashmiris in illegally Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir and to the international community, all were a web of lies constructed by Modi and their propagandists. But even if any sort of development, which is not there, because if development would be there, 18% Kashmiri youth would not be unemployed, and this unemployment ratio among the educated Kashmiri youth is much higher than 18%. I think it is around 24%. So that would not be the scenario. But yes, even if there would be any slight development, because as I said, that by discarding the CBMs of free trade across the LOC, free movement of Kashmiri public across the LOC, and all those connections, they were helping the local economy and indigenous entrepreneurship of Kashmiris. So by destroying all that, the economy of Kashmir is not at all at even like better than the what it was before 2019. So there is no such development. But if there would be any development, even then Kashmiris would vote for independence from illegally Indian occupation. They would vote for plebiscite, their right to self-determination. And
Mr. Wani, Mr. Wani, when we talk about, of course, on-ground situation in Kashmir and talking about the high unemployment ratio among Kashmiri youth, how important or significant was the role of this land changes in the land ownership laws since 2019 in economy of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and of course it changed the voter sentiment as well?
You see, when the abrogation of Article 370-35 took place, at that time, the government of India or the Indian Prime Minister, Home Minister, other ministers, they always said that it will bring the development in Kashmir, employment in Kashmir, and we will change the fate of the people of Kashmir. What we have seen from that day, it's not what we say, it's that what their statistics say, that unemployment rate has risen. You say 18%, it has risen to 23%. It was 18% before, it has risen to 23% now. Similarly, the investment in Kashmir has decreased from 2019 till date. It has decreased in every way. It has not increased. If there is any development in Kashmir, that is the development of rail and road the connectivity which they are trying to make. But recently I saw a report by the Amnesty International which says that how this rail and road infrastructure in Indian occupied Kashmir has affected the livelihood of the people of Indian occupied Kashmir. The orchards, the agricultural land has been taken over by the government for these constituents.
And also the control of Waqf board.
That's another. These roads, these rail connectivity, these are all for defense purposes. They have no the development thing regarding the people of Kashmir. So they are taking their land in the construction of rail and road and other things, making them landless. On the other hand, the orders which they gave to the army to take over the land, you can take any land, you can declare any land as strategic, and you can bring
this
it
came
army
after
conflict.
the changes in law since
Yes,
2019.
in 2019, it was 2020
Land
when the
ownership laws were
ownership
changed.
laws. So then we saw the hundreds of thousands of acres of land have been granted to the Indian Army. They have taken it. They are not paying any compensation to the people. On the other hand, you can see all the tourist spots in Kashmir. There are big garrisons now constructed by the Indian Army at all tourist spots. Along with that, you can see the Waqf board. You describe our Waqf board. Now, this is direct interference in the religious matters of the people of Kashmir. This Waqf board was there for last 70 years or 77 years. It was
and
there.
Even the opposition parties are raising questions
Everybody
on
was
it.
looking for it, and it was running the matters of the Waqf and other Awqaf things. But what the government of India did, they changed its Waqf board in such a way they can have a non-Muslim as a chairperson of the Waqf. So he will run or she will run
the mosques
the mosques of this, and likewise the any DC, any district commissioner, and he can be the chair of this Waqf board. So in that way, India has also, this BJP government has encroached upon our religious rights in Kashmir. This is also their way of development. We can say this is their way of development.
But at the same time, there are very reduced job opportunities, especially in government sector for the Kashmiri youth.
There are two things. One, from 2019 till date, there is no recruitment in Kashmir because those were lapses. First it was the corona and other things, and then there was no recruitment in Kashmir, so people are waiting for that. Number one. Number two, now the people of Kashmir, the Kashmiri young people have to their contest will be with the rest of the Indian candidates for the higher jobs. So there are very less and less opportunities for the people of Kashmir, for the younger generation of Kashmir. They are losing their hope against the all this what they have wrote. And on the top of it, we have seen that most of the now the Indian universities or Indian colleges or universities, Kashmiri students are being they are being vilified. Their profiling is done. Sometimes they are thrashed, sometimes harassed, and sometimes even killed by the Hindu extremists with the consent of the Indian government. So nothing happens for that. So that has forced to Kashmiris. There was one window for them to come to Pakistan for the education, and now the Indian government has closed those doors also. And those who had done their masters or MBBS engineering from Pakistani universities, the Indian government is not issuing them any NOC, so then they cannot have the job. They are left with no jobs over there. So that is increasing. That is why we see the increase. On one hand, government of India is facilitating that, but on the other hand, these conditions of the socio-economic trauma has increased the drug addiction in Indian-occupied Kashmir.
Right, of course, there are a lot of social problems emerging in the region as well. But Dr. Asma, coming back to the upcoming elections that are going to be held in the region, what are your expectations regarding the voter turnout?
Voter turnout in extremely democratic societies, even there it is not more than 40 to 50%. So ideally we can expect this turnout. But here, while taking a point of Mr. Altaf Wani, I would like to add that the people of Kashmir have full realization that the logistical mobility is always for the military purposes. When we say that there are new roads and bridges and logistical infrastructure in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, that is to facilitate Indian Army's mobility and mobilization in that area. But they are trying people to be convinced that this is for them. And as rightly pointed out by my co-speaker, that the climate of illegally Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir is extremely damaged because of all that infrastructure, and the government of India, like all colonial power, didn't take into account that how those activities would damage the livelihood of Kashmiris. And this reminded me that the Indian occupied forces, they themselves destroyed the orchards of apples and almost destroyed the apple industry in Kashmir by removing taxes from the apple import from America. And that is one of the concerns of Kashmiris as well. So there is no question about it that how, of course, 900,000 Indian occupying forces present in Kashmir are also a threat for the climate and environment, and that is also affecting the livelihood of Kashmiris. So there would be, but coming back to your question, the voter turnout would be around 40%, I would say. And here it is also very important to mention that the Kashmiris living in illegally Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir are facing worse harassment from the government agencies and government forces, because all Kashmiris are traceable now. Government of India has put these chips in the electricity meters to keep an eye on the movements of Kashmiri. And I was talking
complete
to
surveillance of the citizens and harassing the population in that regards as well. But Mr. Wani, lastly, how significant do you think would be the voter turnout, especially if a lot of voters or the young population appear to be using their vote as a resentment against Delhi's policies, if they are going to be using that? So do you think that is kind of a double-edged sword, that India might be using it to portray normalcy again in the region?
Yes, India will use each and everything for their own purposes. They will say it's a normalcy. We
so
are
what
a
are your
democratic
expectations regarding the sentiment?
Having at that, at this point of time, Kashmiris have the only one choice: to show door to the BJP, that they will come out, they will be forced to come out, and they will come out. And if the younger generation comes out like they came in the parliament elections for Rashid and others, then the scenario will be totally different. Whatever the results are, the results will be against the BJP, results will be against the India, and the decision will be against India. India might play it, that this is their victory, that they have held the elections in occupied Kashmir in a democratic way, but the world knows that what democracy India is having in Kashmir, and the way they conduct the election and the way what they desired results were. Already the parties to the election like NC and PDP were the major parties in there. They have already raised alarms on the BJP's way of conducting elections in Kashmir.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Altaf Hussain Wani, for joining us in today's program. Thank you very much, Dr. Asma Shakir, for joining us in today's program. Of course, in today's program, we discussed about the upcoming elections in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and what one thing is beyond doubt, that people of the region would not be accepting any outsiders coming to rule them. That's all from Game Changer tonight. Take care. Allah Hafiz.